Bill Clinton, he deported or returned 12 million people. Obama deported and returned 5 million people. Trump is not even at 1.5 million. And no, they didn't all get due process. In fact, Bill Clinton worked with a Republican Congress to pass a law that deprived anyone within 100 miles of any U.S. border who'd been in the country less than 14 days a courtroom. Obama expanded that law. So for everyone who's mad about Alligator Alcatraz, let's also not forget that Obama was the one who built the cages at the border. The reason that you weren't seeing ICE agent raids all over the news back then is because sanctuary cities did not exist. Local law enforcement cooperated with federal law enforcement. They held criminals for ICE to pick up. They didn't release them. They didn't tell people that ICE were Trump's private army who was zip tying children. Also a lie. And guess what? ICE didn't have to wear masks. They wore street clothes. They didn't need to wear riot gear. No riot gear. Wake up. You're being manipulated.
It's simply a step toward totalitarian and authoritarian effort to suppress the vote. And it goes along with his seizing election machines and voting rolls, imposing citizenship tests, a series of actions that are designed to suppress and maybe stop the vote.
The Democrat Party in this country ceases to exist as a viable political party without taxpayer money. They find a way to swindle it, without the mass importation of foreign barbarians, and without election fraud. Without those three things, the Democrat Party becomes not a 50% party, a 20% party, 25%. The party has to go away. So when you understand that, you understand why they fight so hard to keep foreign barbarians here. Their entire existence disappears without the mass importation of foreign barbarians who will be given taxpayer money in various ways and then will vote for Democrats in various ways. So ICE surges into Minneapolis, surges into Minnesota. They start scarfing up foreigners. What happens? Here's what happens. Elite communists, they want to cause disruptions. They want to cause all kinds of disorder out there. But they're, of course, not going to get their manicured fingers dirty. That's the elite communists. The street communists, it's their job to get their fingers dirty. Street communists are generally the true believers, almost always broken, miserable, pill-addicted criminals. Now, the bad part is, and it happened in Minnesota, fighting a war, fighting a revolution can be hazardous to your health. That woman died. She goes out, tries to run over a federal officer. That's going to get you killed about 99% of the time. Now she's gone. You communist street animals who watch the show and send in death threats, I'm coming for you, and all that other stuff you say, that's whatever, that's fine. But you should understand that they don't care about you. That woman who was just sent out to die, that revolutionary, you know they'll send you tomorrow, and then your daughter the next day, and your son the next day after that, and the people who are breaking your mind and your soul as you consume it on social media and you read the New York Times, and none of those people will lose a minute of sleep when you die for their cause. I hope you know that.
Joe Pasillo. We're having some technical difficulties. I'm sure Joe will be here soon, but that's basically the big story this week. Basically, the SAVE Act. That is what's being discussed. And that particular clip and a few of those other clips basically give us some insight into what's going on in the halls of Congress and also in the Senate. Ultimately, they, as in they, the Democratic Party, who is radically left, They are fighting for their life. Why? Because what they need are immigrants. They need the migrants to vote. That is why they were let in. And what that man, Jesse Kelly, said, I wouldn't have called them barbarians. That's his words, not mine. However, that is the tool to keep them in office. And that is why they are fighting so hard. Period. End of story. Jesse Kelly called that spot on. He also called this spot on. They don't care about the people on the street. There's a term for that in communist circles, useful idiots. And I have nothing but pity for them. That woman, I was talking to my wife last night about it, Joe Basillo. While I disagree with her on just about everything, I have nothing but pity and sorrow. She was a mother. There's no reason why she should have died. And frankly, if this keeps up, more people are going to die like that. It's a tragedy.
No, it is. And that's what they want, because they want to do what Blumenthal was saying in the second clip. If you're just joining us here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello, Sunday mornings, going way into the breach on this Super Bowl Sunday. That should be interesting later with Bad Bunny and see how because Kid Rock is doing a halftime show to try to offset that. We'll see how that all shakes out, particularly in the aftermath with the media. Blumenthal described my mother when he said citizenship, voter ID, citizenship test. My mother had to do that. That wasn't totalitarian. That wasn't authoritarian. My mother came from Italy and she had to take a test. You know what she did, Joe? She studied for it. That's what she did. She studied for the test, the civil test. You had to take a civics test to become a United States citizen, get an ID, learn how to drive. My mother did that, but nobody else could do that. That's somehow authoritarian, totalitarian. And the joke of it is, again, as we say all the time at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, I don't blame the Democrats. John Thune is holding up the SAVE Act right now. The Senate Majority Leader, who ostensibly is a conservative Republican, is holding up the SAVE Act to require voter ID.
And
then they wonder why they get angry, because they're not useful idiots, Joe. You're right. Many of them are. Let me rephrase that. They are useful idiots. Some of them are just greedy scumbags because they're making money off it too.
This is the benchmark to tell the sheep from the goats. Any person that is against the SAVE Act is against free and fair elections in America. And how do I know this? Because 71%, this was a poll by CNN, look it up, of Democrats want proof of identification.
Right.
71% of Democrats. Republicans, it's close to 90%. What does that say? It says that the Senate and the Congress don't care what the American people think because they don't and are not interested in the voice of the people speaking in the elections.
Right.
They're not.
Right.
And to Thune's point, the only way that is going to take place is to get rid of the filibuster. And this is the benchmark. If he does not do that, and anyone for that matter that does not do that in the Congress or in Senate, because this is what the American people want, both Republican and Democrat, they need to go. It is a testament against the fact that the American people's voice does not matter. And I'm going to tell you this, as if this does not pass and this goes forward, you are going to see chaos in this country.
That's right.
Because no one is going to believe the election results.
But the Republicans have the power right now. They can end the filibuster. Listen, I wish they would stop thinking in their mind there's something to preserve here. There is nothing to preserve. If the Democrats get in, they're ending the filibuster. Game over, lights out. No SAVE Act. Taxes going up. Unregulated immigration. I'm telling you, it's going to be funding the deep state. The country is finished because immediately the Democrats will end the filibuster. Guys, Thune, the rest of you, they're playing chess. You're not even playing checkers.
But I actually think they're aware of it, Joe. It shows who they truly are. You see, this is where I think the bully pulpit has to be used by Trump. And Trump is a shrewd man, and I think he will use it. You are showing your hand by not supporting this. Any person, doesn't matter who you are, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, it's common sense. It's common sense. You have to prove you're a citizen to vote in a country. I don't get to vote in Canada because I'm not a citizen. I could have an opinion, but I don't get to vote. Well, you don't get to vote in this country if you do not pay taxes and you are not a citizen. This is not some esoteric idea. This isn't a radical idea. It's straight up and down common sense. And any person who is not for that has an ulterior motive. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to understand what's going on. You simply don't, Joe.
Well, listen, they're the ones. They're the ones who put together the commission a while ago. And today at the front line with Joe and Joe, we're going to be discussing a couple things. White Christian evangelical men. I mean, I don't understand. Like somebody who has can go on social media or any other outlet and take a group of people and vilify them. But if you or I did that about any group of people on the left, or the left considers a protected group, Jews, blacks, homosexuals, we'd be killed. They would execute us. But we're going to show you that clip, which is extremely nauseating. So throwing that out there. Alex Jones was right. All the conspiracy theorists, which everybody knows was a CIA tactic to try to shut people up after the Kennedy assassination. They didn't want them talking about this conspiracy or that conspiracy or this theory of who killed him and everything else. Well, Alex Jones on a lot of this was absolutely right and has been vindicated. Andrew Tate, who we're not big fans, but he makes some good points. We're going to talk about him. Danielle Smith snapping back up there in Canada and talking up there. But let's go to this real quick, staying on immigration for a second.
Talk to get around the fundamental problem, which is the bipartisan commission chaired by Jimmy Carter and James Baker said back in 2009 that mail-in voting is fraught with the risk of fraud and coercion.
But since then,
and until this
administration haven't proved it.
Let me talk.
Yeah, please.
And since that time, there have been in the newspapers, in networks, academic studies saying it is open to fraud and coercion. The only time the narrative changed is after this administration came in. But elections that have been held with mail have found substantial fraud and coercion. For example, we indicted someone in Texas, 1,700 ballots collected. From people who could vote, he made them out and voted for the person he wanted to. Okay? Because that kind of thing happens with mail-in ballots, and everyone.
I mean, it's just a concrete example of how these people win. And here's the thing. I wish they would just call themselves what they are. Like Blumenthal said, the only thing is Blumenthal's got to say that about his own party. They're the totalitarians. They're the authoritarians. They don't give a crap about democracy. Nothing. 100%. They won't pluck a hair for democracy. If they did, they would say like, okay, it's not something that we're just bringing up as a gotcha thing. This was a bipartisan commission. Bipartisan. Okay.
Carter is hardly a conservative.
Right. And they turn around and they said, look, these mail-in ballots, all it's going to do is lead to fraud. Voter ID, one-day voting, that's it. You count,
paper
you get your
ballots.
popcorn. What's that?
Paper ballots.
Yeah. And then you vote, and then after you get done voting, go home, 6 o'clock Eastern time, put on the news, get out the brown liquor and the popcorn, and watch the results. You're either crying in your whiskey.
And this circles back to the original conversation. They can't win. They know it. You see, they can't win if they do that. And they know it. Right now, America votes 70% through mail-in ballot. That changed from 30% as a result of COVID. Ask yourself, why? Why? There is no reason why that should take place other than the fact that it's a process by which it can be and has been manipulated historically. France in the 90s went away from mail-in ballots. France is hardly a bastion of democracy because of that. Look it up. By the way, that bipartisan commission of Jimmy Carter and James Baker, I've tried to find it on the internet, that study. I couldn't.
Scrubbed.
That should tell people something also.
That's right.
This
it's been scrubbed. They don't want you to see that.
more than a manipulation of the American voice. And if you're for that, you say everything you need to say to me.
Right.
Any person, no matter who they are, you should want free and fair elections. And here's the deal. If you are not a citizen of this country, you can't vote, and that is not a radical idea. If people do not feel that the elections are real, you are going to have violence in this country on both sides of the aisle. That is not how a country operates. And what will result of that is a strong man that pops up. You will get Mussolini. It's historically proven. Putin is that man. Napoleon was that man. Pinochet was that man, and Franco was that man.
But let me tell you something.
150 years.
Let me tell you something. I don't care how this sounds, and I don't care who agrees with me or not here at the front line with Joe and Joe. I'll take Mussolini, Franco, or Pinochet over this government that we have any day of the week. And I could demonstrate that in what they did. I know Mussolini gets more of a bad rap because he was allied with Hitler. Franco and Pinochet, Joe, let me tell you something. You would much rather have lived under Franco and Pinochet during their resurgence under Pinochet, in Chile and in Spain, than live under this administration, this regime of Democrats and Republicans that we're going through. Here, I'll show you a case in point. So if you want proof of the idiocy, here, watch it.
I believe the ranking member does not understand the definition of generalized inflation versus one-time price increases. I would also note that housing, especially for working Americans, a Wharton study has shown that the mass unfettered immigration, adding 10 to 20 million new people demanding housing, Congresswoman, is what caused a great deal of housing inflation for working Americans. So you and the Biden administration should be ashamed.
Which is also...
Who is best in talking
Maxine
to there?
Waters.
Maxine Waters. Okay. You tell me I'm supposed to what? Say, like, wring my hands. Oh, Pinochet was so... I would have loved to have been a citizen under Pinochet. As a Roman Catholic man, in other words, conservative man, but I got to live under Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters makes decisions that affect my life. Pinochet didn't hate me. Pinochet's crime, by the way, just to throw it out there to you, Pinochet's crime is he took a couple thousand drug dealers and communists out into the forest and put a bullet in their head because he understood what his country was up against. Drug dealers and communists. Franco fought against the communists in Spain. Where would you have been? I would say to any American. Now, we know where the left would have been. The left would have been fighting with the communists. I would have been fighting with Franco in the Spanish Civil War. No question about it. Both of them caused a rebirth in their country, and both of them did something that what you're talking about with elections, Joe. In other words, what these guys, Democrats mostly, but Republicans too, and communist dictators throughout the world, Pinochet and Franco both did one thing that they would never do. They gave power back once the job was done. And then they were wrecked for it in the media and by the leftist media. Maxine Waters, I want to live under laws that are passed by that woman as opposed to Pinochet and Franco. I'll take Pinochet and Franco.
I want to focus on what Bessett said because no one's saying it. We've been saying it, and when I heard it, it was like music to my ears. And you're starting to hear the same thing from town hall meetings in Chicago and in the Bronx and in Brooklyn, whereby the working poor, their wages are being driven down and their rent is being driven up because of the influx of illegal immigrants, which was strategically executed by the Biden administration to bring in votes. No one is talking about that. Where is AOC, who's championing the poor, having that conversation? Where is all of them, for that matter? Maxine Waters should be saying that. And what it says to me is Maxine Waters is more concerned about power than the people she represents, because those are the people she represents, and the illegals are taking their services. This is reality. I'm not making this up. So if you are for that, you have to weigh the whole picture. And if you weigh the whole picture and know the whole picture, what does it say about your opinion? It says that you're more concerned about a power grab, and you can care less about those people, which, by the way, for decades have been abandoned by the Democratic Party. Absolutely. We've seen that in Newark, New Jersey. We've seen that in Patterson. We've seen that in Memphis. We've seen that in New Orleans. We've seen that in East St. Louis. What have they done for the poor? Nothing except give me your vote and then forget about you.
And then to answer your question about AOC, her solution is not that she doesn't. Of course, Joe Resinello, we know that there's a problem. We just need to go get more money from rich people. It doesn't work that way, AOC. It doesn't work that way. Listen, at some point, even the rich elites in New York City who vote for people like Mamdani, they're going to leave too.
Oh, of course they're going to leave.
They'll find loopholes in the law so they don't have to pay taxes, where they'll be able to maintain an apartment in New York City so they can enjoy New York City, and they won't pay any taxes.
No,
here.
I think they're going to leave New York City.
I want to tell her. Listen,
they're going to leave. They're going to, just like they're fleeing Los Angeles. Rich people are not going to spend millions of dollars for an apartment to have 7 feet of garbage in front of it.
Have you seen pictures over the last couple of weeks?
I have. Dude, I'm in the city.
I was going to say, you walked through it. You must have walked through it.
I walk 17 blocks every time I come in from Port Authority.
Listen, every time they get busted with pictures like that in New York City or any of the case would be, they're immediate. Listen, this is what I mean about the media. Joe, if there was a violent revolution, if there was a violent civil war, okay, I'm telling you right now, the first thing that's going to happen is those who consider themselves on the right, who own guns, they're going to storm these media companies. They're going to drag people out and they're going to shoot them. I don't want that to happen, but I'm telling you, the media has been so complicit in all of this. The distrust that you described earlier, where people are going to start getting real angry and picking up weapons, that distrust, okay, that's a large part, not just focused at politicians. I would say equally at the media, because they allow these people like Dick Blumenthal and others to lie about these things. To say in a hyperbolic way, it's going to lead to authoritarian. No, it's going to lead to what you say you want, which is actual democracy. And actual democracy means that only American citizens vote. That's it. No, just because you pay taxes doesn't mean you get to vote. You need to be a citizen. You pay taxes because you come here and you earn money in America. That's why you pay taxes. That does not automatically give you citizenship. And if you don't have citizenship, you do not have the right to vote. And the flyer that's being thrown out there, which in further reflection, have you heard this? And let us know out there in the comment section if you heard this. There is a flyer going around to say, I heard Rand Paul say it to Joe Rogan, and others I've heard say the same thing, okay? That those who are here illegally, now not those are recent illegals. In other words, recent illegals, you're caught, you leave, okay? But people have been here for quite some time. Here's your this is a lot of the people that are still here illegally that vote, okay, that they want to protect the vote for. You could work here, you could pay taxes. You're not going to be deported, okay? You're protected under our laws, but what you cannot do is you cannot vote. Now that to me is very shrewd, okay? Because those people who would opt for that. Rand Paul said he thinks the vast majority of those same people would opt to say, okay, I could work here.
But the people who let them in wouldn't, because they don't care about them.
Say, get their Hispanic asses out of our country.
100%.
That's what Maxine Waters would
100%.
say. That's exactly what they would say. They would say, we don't want them here anymore. Because guess what? Now they're going to be here. They signed the document, Joe, that says they're not voting, okay? But they could stay here legally and they could work and pay taxes and enjoy, let's say, at least protection under the law, of course, because you need to be protected if you're working here by the law, but you can't vote and you're never going to be a citizen. Nancy Pelosi would say, get them all out of the state of California 100%. And every other part of the country, because now you can't do anything. I hope it happens.
Well,
I hope it happens.
It's not going to happen because, again, that's dreamland. But it proves the point. Like all they care about. This is what has happened in Europe. Again, we've been saying this. Now the conversation is basically in the mainstream to a degree. Joe and I have been talking about this for years. Right. This is what they did in Europe, and this is what we're going to talk about a little bit later in Spain. He just naturalized 500,000 people.
And what we're going to talk about with that also when it comes to Spain is if you speak out against that or
you
any
go to jail.
other thing, you're going to jail. We're going to show you the clip so you know Joe and Joe aren't lying. Okay, we're going to show you the clip. So it's the president of Spain saying we're going to craft criminal legislation against social media companies. That means he wants Elon Musk in an orange jumpsuit.
100%.
By the way, how many people in the Epstein files are not in an orange jumpsuit? But somehow, some way, Elon Musk, who's probably not in the Epstein files. And if he was,
no,
in
he
any
was.
nefarious-
Well, there's comments and emails with about
right.
with him,
But if
in
he
fairness.
really was, Joe, if he really was in a nefarious way, like they're doing something bad. Remember, somebody made a good point. Actually, we'll save that for Alex Jones. Let's go to Canada because we want you to stick around here. We're going to be talking about a couple different things. Let Danielle Smith. Now, see, what happens is some people might take up what Joe Pasillo said. I'm not going to say Joe and Joe because you happen to disagree with me on this, or maybe not agree with me 1,000%. Or I said, you know what? We're at such an odds with each other. Why don't we split the country in half and have East America and West America? And we're no longer one nation under God. West America will, because the conservatives will take the West, probably because it's prettier. But we'll take the West, all right, and we'll split the country. We'll separate. Well, when you talk like that, obviously the left gets all in a tizzy because they want to control everybody. They don't want to give you any space to breathe. Like Tim Gordon, who said one time, when the left sees an inch of the room that they don't have, they say, why don't we have that inch too? They'll never let you separate. Danielle Smith's got something to say.
It's been clear that me and our United Conservative Caucus are supportive of a strong and sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. That is one of the bills that we passed when I first came in. But I think we also have to be realistic that 10 years under Justin Trudeau's government, our province was relentlessly attacked. Our economy was relentlessly attacked, not only for our economy, but our provincial rights and also our personal freedoms and our way of life. And so when you look at the polls, they suggest as many as 30% of Albertans have lost hope. That's about 1 million people. And I'm not going to demonize or marginalize a million of my fellow citizens when they've got legitimate grievances. What we need to do is we need to give Albertans hope. We need to show them, not just tell them, not just words, but with actions, that Canada can work. And that's what I've been doing. That's why I signed an agreement with the Prime Minister in November so that we could work in common cause on correcting some of the mistakes, I would say, of the Trudeau government. And it's why we participate in these kinds of First Ministers conferences so that we can find.
Okay, but here's the thing. She's saying that she's working with Ottawa, right? She's working with the administration in Canada, okay? They're not going to correct any mistakes, Ms. Smith. The whole purpose was, in their mind, they're not mistakes. Now, in the mind of the 30% of Albertans, that million Canadians that don't want to be part of Alberta. And Joe, let me tell you something, like any other movement, if you're starting at 30%, that number is going to grow. Carney's not interested in correcting any mistakes because Carney doesn't think they were mistakes, because the people of Alberta were deliberately attacked by Trudeau's administration. They're going to continue to be attacked by Carney's administration. They'll put lipstick on that pig somehow, okay? They'll try to do that, but that number is going to grow. You're Joe Stradamus, I'm Joe Stradamus Jr., okay? How's that? You're senior, I'm junior. Here's my prediction. That number from 30% is going to grow. And Alberta at some point is going to reach a critical mass. Joe, I said this before, in all of human history, when you're living at the moment, when you have borders and boundaries, it's hard to imagine those boundaries shifting. But if you look at all of human history, Joe, boundaries shift all the time. Go look at Europe over the last 150, 200 years. Go look at Europe over the last 1,000 years. How many lines have been changed? How many borders have been changed? Who's to say that you can't carve out that part of Alberta and make it the 51st state of the United States of America? Okay? So the bottom line is, I think that 30% is going to grow, and the mistakes that were made were not mistakes. Like Danielle Smith said, they were deliberate attacks upon the people of that province.
Couple comments. I mean, Danielle's comments here were in reaction to some voices within Canada saying the separatists in Alberta are treasonous. And that's what her comments were addressing. Why would you think that someone who wants to basically live free be treasonous? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be a part of the United States. Maybe they simply just want to be not a part of Canada anymore because they're being oppressed, financially speaking. And that's what it's all about, frankly. And she's basically defending that voice. Ultimately, any person, thinking person, a person who cares for their family, want their family to thrive. let's be honest, ideology doesn't trump family. At least it shouldn't. And these are people who see no way out, that they're being taxed to death, that their standard of living has gone down so much that they can no longer live under these guidelines. Now, Mark Carney can live under those guidelines. He's a multimillionaire. So is Justin Trudeau. So is Doug Ford. But the average person can't. So they want out. And that doesn't necessarily mean they want to be a part of the United States. They simply want out. I could just speak for myself. There are many ideas in America that I want nothing to do with. Any thinking person who is a father and has children should be saying the same thing, to be honest with you.
Well, Joe, not for nothing. What you just said, I mean, this is a larger point than just talking about Alberta. And you talk about what people want. You said something very telling. Let's do a little deeper dive here on a more philosophical level. You say any thinking person. Joe, the problem is that we've been indoctrinated in the United States and Canada and globally, all right? The West, if you want to call it the West, has been completely indoctrinated with sexual liberation, with ideas that promote you not being a thinking person and just following your animal instincts. That's why we hammer on sexual liberation all the time, hammer on its attendant consequences, which is abortion, all right, which is a slaughter of innocent children in the womb. Joe, they don't want thinking people. And if you wake up every day just worried about where I'm going to get laid, get high, and get drunk, then guess what you're not doing? You're not using your reason. You're not a thinking person. And that's the type of person they want. Why aren't 100% of the people in Alberta saying, I know some people in the chat room are thinking, okay, about Danielle Smith. We're moving beyond Danielle Smith as far as maybe some of her own things that you disagree with. And I understand all that. She's a politician too. Just talk about the idea. Why wouldn't the people of Alberta say, you want to know what? We have Ottawa by the nuts. Because we produce all the oil. So if we turned around as a people and said, guess what? We're separating from you. And we are the economic engine of Canada. And we will separate from you and we'll create our own state. Forget about the United States. And we'll become an economic powerhouse because we have the oil to export. And we can import other raw materials and we could create our own economy and we could have our own standard of living and we'll be our own nation. Why wouldn't 100% of the people agree with that? For the same reason that you can't get people in the United States to agree with it. Joe, if you gave people a laundry list as long as my arm of 9 things that would be very, very appealing to them from, let's say, if I was running for president in the United States, they would say, oh, I like this guy, but where is he on abortion? I said, well, I'm an abortion abolitionist. I'm not voting for you. I'm using that as an example. That and other areas where they try to diminish your capacity to use your reason are the means by which they control us. That's not an original idea. That goes back a very long time. E. Michael Jones has brought that to the forefront in many of his books. The idea is you are controlled politically when you're sold all these other bills of goods. And that's why you don't get voter ID in the United States and people voting again. That's why you don't get a real separatist movement in Alberta. That's why you don't get a real separatist movement in America. Quite frankly, which not for nothing, I'm to the point now, Joe, depending on the next couple of years, I want that. I want there to be a push. The United States needs to split. I don't want to be ruled by Maxine Waters or any of those people on the left, and the Republicans that we elect or whatever need to be in line with our worldview. And again, I know that was a rant. I'll throw it over to you.
Ultimately, what I'm concerned and what I want to pay attention to is as this movement grows in Alberta, and I agree with Joe Pasillo, I think it will, because I think the pain point is going to increase because Carney means business and he is executing. He is executing. The whole world order has shifted and it's recently come to the forefront. We heard that at the WEF. Carney was very clear on where he stands in the direction he's going. As this happens, what will they do to those separatists is my question to the people in the chat. What will they do? We already saw what they did to the COVID protesters with the truckers under Trudeau. What will they do? 30% is a big number. And if that grows and they actually pose a threat, because right now they're not a threat, they're just a voice, let that number grow to 45%. What will they do to those people Will they freeze their bank accounts as they did to the truckers? That's the question I'm putting out to the Canadians to think about and think long and hard. Do you think they're above or below that? Absolutely not. That
I
is
agree with you.
absolutely a real question that you should consider. How will they punish you for wanting to be free?
No, listen, I hear you 1,000. One of the ways they punish you aside from the law is they get their media animals, and that's what I call them, animals. And by the way, you don't have to be a male of the species to be an animal. You could be like these two women that I'm going to play for you right now. They just sick their dogs on you. And Joe, these two women, sorry, they're dogs.
This is a cancer. White evangelical Christianity is a cancer. These are the worst of our country. These are the worst people in our country because they use their religion in two ways, as a weapon and as a shield. They weaponize it whenever they want to and say, we're on the moral high ground. You're a lesbian. You deserve to die. You're a lesbian. The cops shouldn't have revived you. Oh, your parents are Mexicans and they brought you over here. Yeah, you should go to jail and eat worm food. And then when you call them out on it, oh my God, they're after the Christians. How dare they? How dare they? We're so oppressed. White Christians are so oppressed in this country. And they want it both ways because in the religion, that duplicity is taught. You can be morally duplicitous. You thrive in cognitive dissonance. And so this is just a massive, massive problem. And it should come as no surprise to anyone that of this.
Take out the word Christian and insert the word Jew or Muslim. Would that video get taken down? Insert the word Jew or Muslim into what she just said. Okay? And with, again, she wouldn't last 3 seconds in the politically correct buzzsaw if she did that. But she could get away with saying that about Christian. Everything, by the way, she said, and we could go on for hours and we're not. Everything she just said. Number one, she is a hateful human being. Number one. Number two, there is nothing duplicitous. I don't know any Christian. If she wants to say white evangelical Christians, I don't know who she's talking about. I know evangelical Christians. If a lesbian, first of all, I don't know if a woman is in a car accident and the EMT is a white evangelical Christian man. I don't know if he's going to ask the woman dying on the highway who he could save. I don't know if he's going to ask, are you a lesbian? Because if you are, I'm just going to let you die and go to hell. So she's full of crap. But this is the thing, the politically correct crowd, the elites and everybody, and we'll talk about them in the next segment with Alex Jones. All the elites let her get away with that bile that she just spewed. She's an animal, and so is the woman listening to her.
Ultimately, that conversation is the conversation. It's not Republican or Democrat. You will find some common thread across some of this political divide. You'll find it in Canada. You'll find it in America. Those who attribute their belief system to God are not for radical leftism. They're simply not. Talk to anyone. I could just speak for the Christian and the Catholic circles. Anyone who goes to mass every day. They may not like Donald Trump, but they're sure as heck not for what the radical left is spewing, what
Right.
that woman was spewing. Talk to an Orthodox Jew. Talk to a Muslim, a practicing Muslim who prays every day and has a big family, like the ones in Michigan. They're not for this.
No.
Anyone who attributes their worldview through the lens of God or their perception of God, we'll call it that way, because clearly, as a Catholic, I don't see the world the same way as a Muslim does. However, we are standing shoulder to shoulder on the facts that we do not ascribe to what that woman is talking about. And you will find that common thread throughout it. That is the divide.
Right.
That is the divide. It's under the politics, but that is the real divide in America. America is a Christian nation. It was founded by Christian ideals. Every single state, the preamble in every single state, the first sentence references God or basically a word that is saying like to a higher power. Every one. Just like in Saudi Arabia, which is a Muslim nation, they don't apologize for being a Muslim nation, and they shouldn't.
That's right.
We
You're
should
exactly
not
right. They
either.
shouldn't. Right.
This is
They
what
shouldn't.
it is.
But here's the thing. My larger point was those two women. We're going to play a clip from the president of Spain in a little bit, okay? And talk about if those two women separated or inserted the word Jew or Muslim into what they said about Christians, and then that was broadcast in Spain, according to the president of Spain, they should be arrested. As it is, if they broadcast that video in Spain, they'd be like, bravo, that's right, those white evangelical
100%.
These people, look, there are many times I don't like white evangelical. I'm not using the word white because that's irrelevant. White, like Michael Jones says, that's a category of the mind. Okay, it's not a category of reality. White means nothing. Just evangelical Christian. I don't agree with evangelical Christians on a number of things. I think they're too attacking of the Catholic Church and the Catholic faith and Catholic doctrine. Okay, but at the end of the day, I know several of them. Okay, and I've been over their homes. And I broken bread with them and drank a little brown whiskey with them, okay? And the bottom line is this, they're good people, okay? What they don't like and they're not tolerant of is your leftist bullcrap that you constantly want to ram down our throats, whether it's on the economic scale, the immigration scale, whether it's on the culture wars, whether it's on homosexuality, whether it's on abortion. They don't agree with them. And you're the bad guy. In the meantime, Don Lemon, who's not white, who's not an evangelical, or maybe he calls himself a Christian, just stormed a church, a Protestant church, an evangelical church in Minnesota, and harassed women and children and the pastor in that church. Why is he not hateful? Why is he not a hater, Joe Resinello? Now I sound like my father.
But it's a clear double standard. But here's the thing. The radical left are incapable of seeing it that way. You can't even have the discussion. You see, I would not be for storming any church. I would not be for hurting anyone. They see themselves as revolutionaries.
Yes.
They see themselves in the right, and what they do justifies the end. They think nothing of what they did. In fact, They defend it. And I've seen many clips on social media defending what they did. And
well, I don't see white evangelical like this dimwit. I don't see white evangelical Christians being the problem with Don Lemon and a bunch of leftists, okay, storm a church in Minneapolis, and you people seem to think that there's no problem with that. Somehow that falls under the First Amendment protection of free speech. You got no problem with that. But I don't see white evangelicals storming anything.
But here's
like
the
I'm
thing.
talking about, Joe, with social media, real quick, with social media, Joe. If there was white evangelicals, all right, and the regular that were storming places like, I don't know, a gay church or a synagogue or a mosque, Joe, it would be all over the news. You don't see that. Why? Because they're not doing that. That woman's a liar.
Well,
She's
Joe,
a
it's the same thing
liar.
when they talked about January 6th that went on the news media for 18 months. Right. That was a fraternity stunt next to what's been going on in the country in terms of people dying, in terms of destruction, and no one cares. Right. I mean, again, people can't step back and basically look at this objectively. They're unable to do so. But under that woman's conversation is this: the Christian ideal threatens her choices. She, in essence, is fighting for her life, just as the Democratic Party is fighting for their life to make sure that illegal migration, those people, that they vote. Because she has made a life choice, a choice that maybe requires her to have a door to an abortion, because many people live that way. It's a life choice, and they're not willing to budge on it. And frankly, the Christian right terrifies them, because if they came into power, in their mind, their life would be severely impacted, and it may.
Right.
Just like my life is impacted with my children. Public school is not an option for me. I pay taxes, yet that's okay. Give me your tax money, Mr. Joe Resinello, who's a Catholic, and you still can't send your kid to school because it doesn't comport with my belief system, but I'm okay with that, and I don't care that you're not.
Joe, you should move to Arizona. They'll give you $7,500 per child to send them to any school you want.
No, I get it, but this is
What
like,
I'm saying is, like we had on Bishop Clemmy a couple weeks ago on our Veritas show, right? There's ways of doing this, okay? But again, it's the same thing all the time. We're going to keep saying it. We don't care if everybody goes, yeah, we know. I don't care. We have to shout from the rooftops. It's about power and control.
100%.
That's why New Jersey says to Joe Rosanello and his wife, you're going to pay to send your kids to private school, and you're going to pay taxes on, as you described, Joe, the box that you live in Bergen County. Okay, you're going to pay taxes up to you know what, because you're going to pay for other kids' children to go to school. You don't like it? Too bad, leave. That's Murphy's or I don't know that broad Cheryl, whatever her name is, the governor right now. That's exactly what they want. You're going to continue to pay. That, by the way, at some point in the future, and I hope it's sooner than later, is going to go away. But we're not here to talk about property taxes today. But exactly right. That's the way they control. Oh, Joe, you could send your children to that Catholic school. Go right ahead. Oh, by the way, here's your property tax bill. Oh, thank you very much. But anyway,
but that they're okay with that. But this is like, I'm just trying to, again, be objective. But when it comes to basically their side of the fence, making concessions, no way. No. And this is where it's about power. And frankly, it's not about equity. It's about power. Yeah. This whole conversation, under it all, personal choices through God's lens. You either are for them or against them. Now, that does not mean Donald Trump's choices comport perfectly with God. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, the radical left that controls the Democratic Party in America is completely godless.
Oh, yeah.
Completely. Yeah, no. And many of them will actually admit that. It's secular humanism. It's completely godless.
Well, they'll blame you. Like that woman there blames white. I would ask her, I said, do white evangelical Christians, should they have the right to vote? Like you're illegal immigrants? Because it seems like you want me. It's okay if I have a right to vote as long as I vote the way you want me to. That's not the way it works, sweetheart. That's not the way it works. The way it works is I vote my ideas, my worldview. It doesn't matter that they're Catholic. If my ideas are good and I can convince other people that those ideas are good and we should see them implemented in our nation, okay, then they're good. If they're not, they're not. But the thing is, what I think is good and what you think is good are two different things. I'm allowed to vote. And as long as I vote like you, I'm allowed to be a Catholic who votes as long as I reject my Catholic faith. That's not the way democracy works. I like to break it to you. And here, I just want to play this clip. We don't have much time to talk about it. But here's Andrew Tate.
What'd you think of the Olympic opening ceremony?
Yeah, it was deliberately designed to test the resolve of the Christian nations. And when I say Christian nations, in fact, I mean the populations of Christian nations, because there's not very many Christian countries left. You can't call America the Christian country anymore because they protect the pride flag more than they protect Jesus Christ. So it's not a Christian country. I think it's like they wanted to test what resolve is left because they're trying to destroy Western values, which means you have to destroy Christianity along with it. And they've been doing that for a very long time. And they wanted to poke.
Doing that for a very long time. He's exactly right. That's why in their media, that's why they could target. And let me be clear. They're targeting Christianity in general. Their main target is the Catholic Church. It always has been. The devil has hated the Catholic Church since it was established at Pentecost, okay? And has been trying to attack it and destroy it ever since. He knows he made a mistake. Jesus went on the cross, rose from the dead, and left us with the church, and the devil now has to try to attack the church. We get that. And by extension, he's got to attack Catholics in particular, and any Christian, other people of goodwill in general. That's his job. That's his only reason why he does what he does. And he's been a master of it. Let's give, like the saying goes, give the devil his due. He's been a master at doing that.
I want to remind our listeners and viewers to the Summer Olympics, where they made a mockery of the Last Supper. And now we have the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics. That symbol is clearly satanic. And the red lights behind it, it is a clear satanic image and message to people. We reject the Christian edict of the West. We reject it. That is what Satan said, I will not serve. Where am I going with this? I also want to remind our listeners and viewers from the Summer Olympics that we watched, I watched it on television, a man who basically called himself a woman, beat the crap out of a woman in boxing. And it was sanctioned by the Olympics, and we watched it on television. That is despicable. It goes against everything that's good and decent, and every so-called feminist should be appalled. That was sanctioned by the Olympics. And I watched it, and so did many other people, and they called something that something that was not something that is. That is a man, and he beat up a woman on television.
Everybody
and people
responsible
cheered for it.
That's
and
right.
that is what the Olympics is all about, and that is satanic.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And everybody who supported that or kept their mouth shut about it, that was an authority there in the Olympic Committee, they should all be in jail. Let's go to Alex Jones.
One of the first to start covering the Epstein, Mossad, MI6, CIA, honeypot blackmailing operation 18 years ago. And yet again, we're vindicated, folks. Yet again, exactly what we said is dead on target. Human trafficking, sex slavery, pedophilia, the occult, torture of children, mass blackmail. These are sociopathic predators who hate humanity. And now it's all come out. And it's a huge victory that the populist movement forced us to come out. Now we need prosecutions. But even if the system doesn't prosecute, they're convicted in public opinion. They can run, they can't hide. They could only operate in the secret before, in the shadows. That was their power, and now they've lost it. That's why all of you have supported the info over the years. This victory is your victory. This is our victory. This victory belongs to the people of humanity, not just Americans, but around the world. So I salute you all. Thanks for your support. We're in this together. We got more big news to break. We'll always be ahead of the curve. Tomorrow's news today. We'll always tell the truth. As long as you back us, we'll be here. I'll never.
He's been vindicated. Now we're going to find out, and it's a lot more goes on. Remember, they don't dump 3 million pages of the Epstein files without still hiding a whole bunch of stuff. But nonetheless, he's been saying it. He's absolutely right. Joe, everything they call conspiracy theory, I believe every single bit of it. Let me be specific about what I'm talking about. I think they kill children in the womb and they support that. I think they sacrifice children outside the womb, the same way pagan parents did with the statue of Baal, when they used to put the babies on the hands that were, because there was a fire there, and then the baby would roll into the fire and die. They sacrifice children. They sacrifice other people's children. They sacrifice their own children. Okay. I believe it. Oh, they have sex with children at Epstein's Island. Now, let me be clear. Alan Dershowitz said, and I think it's true from everything I've read, just because you went to Epstein's Island doesn't mean you partook in these things. Alan Dershowitz has been very open about this for the last couple of years. In other words, he says, yeah, I've been there. Epstein files show that. Just because you have blackmail going on, because like Hugh Hefner before him, Jeffrey Epstein has everything on tape, and obviously, or had everything on tape and video and audio and pictures and files and the whole 9 yards. I believe every single evil scumbag thing they do, that when you
we're having some difficulties. Joe will be back. Ultimately, the Epstein files, which got dropped, and I saw last weekend a number of those drops, were disturbing, clearly disturbing. And it should raise questions, particularly with federal law enforcement. And this is my concern. Why aren't people in jail? That should be the question. And it basically, what it says to me is that there is a double standard, something we all knew all along, but now it's as clear as day. There are people who are in jail in America and in Canada who robbed a grocery store for 500 US or 500 Canadian dollars and are serving hard time. Yet then you have the powerful of the world who are basically having sex with teenage girls, which is against the law the last time I looked at it, and they're not being prosecuted. There is no one, at least to my knowledge, outside of Maxwell, Giselle Maxwell, whatever her first name was. She did have some legal ramifications for her actions. Outside of her, nothing has happened to anyone. And that should concern people objectively. Objectively. And here's another thing. You know, what Dershowitz said, he said, and it's true, you could clearly go to that island. Maybe it was the place to be, so to speak, and not have basically partaken in the actions. Here's the deal, though. If you are a person of goodwill, we'll just call it that, a person of goodwill, and you went to a party and you saw with your eyes, particularly if you're a man and you have children, particularly if you have daughters, and I have two, and I went there and I saw grown men basically fraternizing in a sexual manner with, say, a 14-year-old girl, at the minimum, I'm leaving immediately. Why would you associate with such a group of individuals? Ask yourself that. And that's what I would say to Alan Dershowitz. Did you know what was going on? It's like the same thing that happened in Hollywood under Harvey Weinstein. You're going to tell me that all those people at the Emmy Awards or at the Oscar Awards didn't understand or didn't know what Harvey Weinstein was doing? Spare me. Spare me. Meanwhile, they're patting him on the back, they're kissing his ass, and they want favors from him. Spare me. Any person of goodwill, doesn't matter what your political affiliation is, would not stand for that. At the minimum, they would distance themselves from it. So where there's smoke, there is fire. And my question is, with the Epstein stuff, why aren't people being prosecuted? Why aren't they going to jail? And they're not. And that should concern every American, everyone. Why? It concerns me because it's despicable and it's disgusting. It says everything you need to know about what's going on and how much these people who are powerful care about you, because they don't. And it's disgusting and despicable. I was scrolling Joe Pasillo through the Epstein files when they dropped. I had to stop. It's just too dark and disgusting. It truly is. And it's not the end of it. I want to know who goes to jail. And my bet is none of them do. None of them. Not a one. And here's another thing. These files were basically in the hands of prosecution under Obama, under Biden, and under Trump. And no one did a damn thing about it. It should tell you something about our system. It should tell you something about our ruling class. And it should tell you something about our society, how we tolerate that. It's disgusting. And to Alex Jones's point, there have been people, especially in Hollywood, who have been talking about this for years. Corey Feldman, he was a child star many years ago. There are clips of Corey Feldman talking about abuse of children. People laughed at him. Mel Gibson, another one, talking about it. Even in the movie The Godfather, there was a scene where a director had sex with a child. That was a message, if you ask me. No one did a damn thing.
They deleted that scene. You're right. They deleted that scene. Originally, in the original Godfather, okay, you see him taking a picture when Tom Hagen goes to Hollywood. You see the producer Waltz taking a picture with the girl. Okay, in the version that came out afterwards, okay, that Coppola released for the Godfather with all deleted scenes, as Tom Hagen's leaving after the producer kicks him out and says, "You tell that Goomba, don't try any rough stuff." You see a shot of him looking up, the producer looking up, and she's on the balcony of his home. And she turns and walks away. You're exactly right. And she's obviously underage. And even if she was 18 or 19, he's still an old man.
She was with her mother.
You know what I mean?
I saw that.
Right. She was. See, sometimes you got to look closer at movies. I tell people all the time, she's in the picture with her mother. Don't think a lot of parents don't go along with this. My father, God rest his soul, used to say this about Michael Jackson all the time. He used to say, he goes, whether or not he's guilty of these things, the fact is, if you're a parent and you know that there's at least allegations of this, do you send your child there? Like, it's like, do you do that? Now, I'm not saying anything about Michael Jackson, nor was my father. But the point is, but if there's a rumor, an allegation that something is going on, why would you send your 10-year-old kid to Neverland? You would try to find out facts first, wouldn't you? So parents are complicit in this. As Alex Jones was talking about, a lot of these evil scumbags, they are parents. But it does make you wonder, and then we'll move on because we only have a couple minutes. It does make you wonder, do these people, like the pagan Romans, do they sacrifice their own children for their own well-being? We know they do that inside the womb through abortion. But if you look at some of the lives of these people, there are children who have either died or have given themselves over to Satan through transgenderism. I mean, look at Will Smith's kid.
Oh,
the kid
that
Jaden.
makes me want to cry.
You think you got to kill your kid, physically kill your kid in order to destroy them? Let your son do what Will Smith let his son do to himself, walking around in public in a dress.
That's a shame.
Will Smith. So I don't care if Lord Jesus, forgive me. I believe in my heart of hearts, Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, they both sold their souls to the devil for fame and fortune. I believe that what Alex Jones is talking about are people that have done just that. But if you sell your soul, you also have to offer sacrifice. And if you look at the lives of a lot of these people and the children that they've lost, you say to yourselves, don't know if there's a coincidence. Now, Joe Resinello, we only have a couple minutes because I have to go to Mass because I worship the one true God, okay? But you did ask this, Joe. You said, well, where are people going to jail in all this?
Next week, my government will implement the following actions. First, we will change the law in Spain to hold platform executives legally accountable for many infringements taking place on their sites. This means that CEOs of these techno platforms will face criminal liability for failing to remove illegal or hateful content.
Just have to leave it there, Joe, because really that goes on for a couple of minutes. He gave you the ribeye right in the beginning. Everything else is kind of like the sides, the spinach and the mashed potatoes. That's the ribeye. We are going to hold CEOs criminally liable for illegal information, okay? Yet people in that Epstein file, nobody's going to go to jail. Here's the president of Spain saying, if you allow Elon Musk, if you allow Mark Zuckerberg, if you allow Joe and Joe or anybody else that we deem to be hate speech on your platforms, you're going to be held legally liable. You know when people used to say things to my father, Joe? I brought up my father a couple times. Maybe, I'm going to go to church and pray for it. My father used to go like this. Whenever somebody ever said anything that was ridiculous, stupid, my father would go like that. That's what I got to think about what you just said. That's what Elon Musk is going, and prayerfully, Mark Zuckerberg says to the president of Spain, say, I'll post anything I want. I'll allow anything on my platform I want. If you deplatform X in Spain, if you make it illegal in Spain, knock yourself out. You're going to have to answer to the people who might want X amongst your people. But guess what? You sending me to jail? That's what I got to say.
We alluded to it earlier in the show. The president of Spain is making those comments because he just recently allowed 500,000 illegal migrants in Spain to vote. And that is the game plan. That is the strategy in Europe. That's what Joe Biden tried to do in America. So that is him acting out because it was all over social media. And he knows an informed population hurts him and the powers that be. It's all about that. It has nothing to do with malinformation, which is a made-up word. It has nothing to do with misinformation. It has everything to do with prohibiting the population to understand what's going on. We have seen this in France. The CEO of Telegraph, Pavlov, what's his last name? I
forgot his last name, but
he was arrested when his plane went in to France. He was taken off the plane and he's no longer allowed to leave France. He lives in in somewhere in the Middle East, Dubai, or one of the like countries out there, which is basically the new Switzerland. He is a prisoner of France because they are trying to control him, because his company Telegraph will not be compromised in his eyes. So they're trying to compromise him. And that is exactly what that gentleman is doing. And this is what people have to think about. And this is what we heard in the new WEF at Davos, the messages. This is what we heard from J.D. Vance when he went to Germany and he said it out loud. The countries that were allies, many countries that were allies with America, France, the UK, Ireland, Spain, Germany, we no longer see eye to eye. These countries are moving in a direction which is a globalist direction, which is anti-human, it's secular humanism, and it's anti-democracy. Call it whatever the heck you want. It's not democracy. Yeah. And ultimately, the lines of power are getting redrawn, just as they were 100 years ago as a result of World War I and World War II. The war is just different. It looks different. These people, if you ask me, pay close attention if J.D. Vance wins the presidency. You will see a different group of allies. We're already seeing it with the, what's her face, the lady who's in charge of the EU, Ursula, whatever the heck, von der Leyen. Oh, poison, pure poison. Any working person that supports that should look deeper. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Look deeper. They're anti-people. They're pro-ideology. They're anti-middle class. And the proof is in the pudding.
I listen, I hear you loud and clear. The only thing, not a correction, I would just expand on what you said a little bit further. When you said that they don't see eye to eye with us, there's plenty of people in America who want exactly what the EU oligarchs
you're
want.
Right.
And they're on Wall Street, and they're in the media, and they're in Hollywood. They don't want an independent, strong America. I wish for the day. I'm going to go ahead and disagree. Taylor Marshall was on our show. He says we need a Catholic movement. I agree with him on that. A Catholic-led movement. And he rightfully said that Catholics have been stabbed in the back many times. Okay, but we could safeguard against that. I think, as you mentioned earlier, we can form an alliance. E. Michael Jones is calling for an alliance with level-headed Muslims in America and Catholics. In other words, because we do on certain levels, on certain areas, family and protections for religious practice and a number of different things. We are on the same anti-usury. I mean, we're Catholics. We're supposed to be anti-usury. But I do see hope that we could form a Catholic-led alliance, but an alliance nonetheless where it's Catholic, but we invite others in who are people of goodwill and understand what we're trying to accomplish. But Joe, you mentioned boundaries. I'm right up the middle on that. I want to split off. I have officially in my mind, I'm a separatist. I don't want to even live next to these people. I don't care if they live next door. I don't want to live next to these people. I want them out. They hate me. I don't hate them, but they hate me, and I don't want them around. I'm going to leave you with this on that, and then we got to get out of here at the front line with Joe and Joe. I want you to think about this. What are the things like that gentleman? There's a lot of people in Europe, a lot of people in America. We mentioned Mussolini and Pinochet and Franco earlier. Let's say, for argument's sake, they did suppress freedom of the press in their respective nations, in Italy, in Spain, and in Chile. Okay, let's say they did that, and these people will rail against them as fascist dictators. Okay, but we just played the president of Spain, who just said the exact same thing. He wants to suppress free speech because now he's the target of that free speech. Him, the EU, the oligarchs, Klaus Schwab, all these people, Yuval Harari, all these people that Alex Jones has been talking about for decades. All of these people who would seek to control your life, that's the president of Spain doing the exact same thing. So what are you talking about? What do you mean you're for democracy and freedom of the speech? You're obviously not in favor of free speech. You say you are, we're just not in favor of hate speech. And this is a conversation that go on and on. Who's to determine what hate speech is? No, this is what we're going to leave you with at the front line with Joe and Joe. Free speech. You want to say something bad about Catholics? Knock yourself out. Joe and I have thick skin, okay? You want to say something bad about conservatives or Republicans? Knock yourself out, okay? You could say whatever you want. but I get to say whatever I want to. Joe Resinello, great conversation here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. Please, wherever you watch this video, help us out. We had a couple technical difficulties, but as Winston Churchill said, we kept buggering on. And we got through it, okay? I'm going to Mass where I'm going to pray for Joe, myself, my family, and all of you good people out there who watch us at the front line with Joe and Joe. And if you're a prayerful person, please pray for the success of the front line with Joe and Joe and help us out. Hit a like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Remember, our Veritas Catholic Radio Network interviews get broadcast on social media. And we do that twice a week, and all of these shows there. If you like the content, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Thanks once again. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere.